50 of you guys from several miles away, and we're watching you get blown into itty-bitty pieces. You see you see how this is a thermal image of this is a fella, he's running, and then boom, and then you see all these little bitty pieces of, you can see on the thermal image, there's several pieces laying around. Yeah, that's that guy. And then you see how there's all these other little bits and pieces laying around. Those are all the other guys that were in this little camp. I don't know why we're not using the same propaganda methods that they are. They seem to be very effective with their terror threats using, social media and things with their videos, trying to scare the world. Personally, I think some of these airstrike videos would be more terrifying if I was a member of ISIS. I mean, I'd put it on Facebook. If I was ISIS and I was located in Syria or Iraq, I would be scared poopless, knowing that these guys, because in the video that I was watching, man, these guys are just walking along, happy, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la, boom, and they're not there no more. And there's one case where there's two guys, and they may be 15, 20 feet apart from each other. And all of a sudden you see this 30 millimeter getting shot at them, blah, 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 just stitching the ground around them, finally hits one of them, and the other guy's looking around like, where in the world did that come from? And where did my buddy go?
He didn't wonder long, did he?
Well, he didn't have long to wonder, no, because he went with him. I mean, they didn't even give him time to take off running. He was just gone. That kind of stuff, I want to see more of that. As an American citizen, I want to see more of that, and I don't want to have to see it pop up on YouTube or Facebook. I want to see it broadcast on the news.
And I don't particularly want to hear about we're with our partners and coalition and peace in the world and making the world a safer place. I want to hear about we took the war to the people who said they was going to fly the black flag over the White House.
And speaking of that coalition, the president keeps saying that we're being joined by 40 other nations.
Who are they?
Yeah. Name them. Name those. I want to know what other nations are joining in. I want to know what they're doing. You know who didn't or who hasn't come right out and said they would be joining this? And this has been broadcast not just on Fox, but on MSNBC and CNN as well.
Who, for instance?
Noticeably absent has been the UK. Where are they? Noticeably absent, Germany. Now, Germany's made no bones about it. They're saying, my name's Paul, and that's between y'all. We heard of France carrying out an airstrike the other day, but France has wanted to make it abundantly clear that they were not part of this strike over the last night because it was in Syria, and it's like they don't want the Syrians to know that they were part of any kind of campaign to do in any exercises in Syria itself. It's like they're okay with airstrikes in Iraq.
Remember, take you back to 1991. I know that's a year you're going to always remember anyway.
Yeah.
But there were all these countries, all of them. They couldn't get to the microphone fast enough to say, I'm in this.
Yep.
I'm in this with George H.W. Bush.
Yeah.
I'm in. We're going to go into Kuwait, and we're going to run Saddam out of there, and if he ain't careful, we'll run him all the way back to Baghdad.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't wait to say it. And in 2001 or 2002, when we went into Afghanistan, we had another coalition of the willing, the Canadians, the British, the Dutch, all going.
The
Yep,
Aussies.
we're going in there. Yeah, going. Hey, let's go in here.
Yeah.
We got some. We're going to be clearing out some desert and some mountains here. And when we went into Iraq, we had the Dutch, the French, the Germans.
But for some reason, they don't want. They don't want. It's like they don't want Syria to know that they're part of a campaign to launch airstrikes against
targets
in Syria. Why is that? I mean, really, I'm asking.
I don't know. I haven't been able to figure it out.
Khorasan group that the president was talking about. They've been talking about it all day.
Yeah.
Admiral Kirby. I've got a clip from him. He is the Pentagon spokesperson. And, he's saying that these airstrikes were only the beginning. And he was on one of the news outlets today, and he said that there was an imminent threat from these people that they were going to attack the United States. Now,
I don't want to know all the details of what they were planning.
Why haven't we heard of these people before?
Mm-hmm.
2, be specific. What kind of attack are we talking about?
Well, maybe they don't want to let them know how much intel we actually have. I'm okay with that.
Or could it be that the only way that they could legally have carried out this strike without congressional authorization, or the only way they could carry out this non-war is if there was an imminent threat
from Al-Qaeda
to the United States homeland? See, that's kind of the way the president can get around having to go, ask permission.
Well, he's also using the justification that they'll have a connection to, quote unquote, core Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
Which means that Habib has a third cousin who watched Osama video. I'm getting this feeling that these connections they have to core Al-Qaeda.
Well, all right. Let's let Admiral Kirby. Maybe he can straighten some of this out.
Morning, everybody. As you all know, last night and early this morning, U.S. and partner nation forces began undertaking military actions against...
Yes.
You said this guy, is Admiral his first name?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it is.
Well, I'm just saying because it sounds like he's 12.
Okay.
Terrorists in Syria using a mix of fighter, bomber, and Tomahawk land attack missiles. Our strikes were against 2 particular groups, ISIL and the Khorasan group. The decision to conduct these strikes was made yesterday by the U.S. Central Command commander under authorization granted him by the commander-in-chief. These strikes were taken as part of the president's comprehensive strategy to degrade and ultimately destroy ISIL and to protect the United States and its partners. Our coalition partners in the fight against ISIL, which in these strikes included Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia, with Qatar in a supporting role, continue to be a critical part of our strategy. Secretary Hagel appreciates their partnership, and in particular, the hard work and the strong leadership shown by our Central Command Commander, General Lloyd Austin, who gave the Secretary an update on the operation throughout it. We did not coordinate with the Assad regime. While the United States did inform the Syrian regime through our UN ambassador of our intent to take action, there was no coordination and no military-to-military communication. In terms of the Khorasan group, which is a network of seasoned al-Qaeda veterans, these strikes were undertaken to disrupt imminent attack plotting against the United States and Western targets. These terrorists have established a safe haven in Syria to plan external attacks, construct and test improvised explosive devices, and recruit Westerners to conduct operations. And the United States took action to protect our interest and to remove their capability to act. In a minute, I will turn it over to the Joint Staff's J3, Director of Operations, Lieutenant General Bill Mayville, to provide more detail about the operation. But before I do, I think it's important to note just a few things. First, and while I'll let General Mayville get into the details of our assessments, our initial indication is that these strikes were very successful. Second, while it's not our policy to discuss future operations, I can tell you that last night's strikes were only the beginning. For this reason, there may be some tactics, techniques, and procedures that we just won't be able to address here today to preserve options that we may want available to us in the future. And finally, we're going to leave it up to our partner nations to detail the specifics of their involvement. I think you may have already seen statements by the Jordanians and by Bahrain as well, acknowledging their involvement. And I'll also just note that Secretary Hagel is immensely proud of the U.S. personnel who participated in and supported these missions. And he deeply appreciates their service and their sacrifice.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Look, I don't want to know details and tactics and any of that other sort of stuff. But I would like to know about any threat to the United States homeland by any group.
I haven't found today where anybody came out and asked them, okay, you hit this training base that you say they're recruiting American citizens. Did we kill any Americans in these strikes?
I'd kind of like to know that too. Seeing as how I also heard over the weekend that, and I heard it from the president's own mouth, that some of these Americans that have gone over to ISIS to help them fight
have returned
back to the U.S. homeland. All right, I would like to know, do you got eyes on these people? Do you know who these people are? Because the way the president was talking, they're not so sure. They're not so sure who these people are. And they can just come back and forth all willy-nilly. Why are we not passing laws similar to those that are being kicked around in the UK's parliament right now to either revoke some of these people's citizenship or take away their passports or send them straight to Gitmo without passing go? I mean, what are we doing here on that front?
I mean, what's wrong with charging them with treason? And
but you know, then again, that would take some action from our Justice Department, and our Justice Department just can't be bothered with anything.
Oh no, man! Look, they're occupied with unrest in Ferguson, Missouri.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's not some incident where there might be some racial disparity going on with the police force in some little backwater hick town somewhere, our Justice Department can't seem to be bothered with it.
I know. They're busy prosecuting people like Lois Lerner.
No. And speaking of which, did you see where Lois Lerner this week, she gave an interview to Politico for an hour and a half?
Yeah.
And Politico says she was very cagey in not wanting to discuss anything that happened during her IRS.
I'm surprised her lawyer let her say anything, but
Well, she's a lawyer herself, so she ought to, she knows not to. Here's something else I found kind of interesting. A reporter asked Josh Earnest a pretty interesting question today, and I'm not sure he gave a satisfactory enough answer. I'm not going to play the entire thing, but bring up a pretty good point. Exactly, the Obama administration has made huge efforts to separate themselves from the Bush administration and how they how the Bush administration prosecuted the war.
Yeah, this whole mess is Bush's fault anyway because he didn't do it right.
Right. Well, check this out. Just check this out.
Christy.
Josh, could you draw the contrast as you see it between the president's contemplated course of action in Syria and the run-up to the Iraq war? I ask because some critics have drawn comparisons between the two. There's no imminent threat. There's no invitation from the sovereign nation. How do you see the president's approach as different from the one pursued by President Bush?
Well, as it relates to the two examples that you cited, there was an invitation from the Iraqi government